Rain hammered the cracked windows of the transport ship, whispering against metal like a warning. Thunder didn't follow. The sky was silent. Too silent. He stared through the glass, watching the gray clouds roll over the jagged skyline of Earth's last functional city. Or what was left of it. Half the buildings had collapsed under their own weight, others stood like skeletons with wind blowing through their empty guts. But they were still standing. And that was more than could be said for most of the planet. He didn't blink. Couldn't. Not when his orders were sealed in the case by his side. Not when the message had come down from orbit less than 6 hours ago. Bring them all back. The words echoed in his head like a curse. The hatch hissed behind him. A shadow moved in. Boots thudded against the rusted floor. Someone younger, probably. Stronger, maybe. He didn't turn. How many do you think are still alive? The voice asked. He closed his eyes. Doesn't matter. Sure it does. No, he said. Our job is to bring them back. Not guess how many bodies we'll be dragging out. The silence returned, thick and uncomfortable. He finally turned, his eyes locking with the woman who had just entered. She was geared up, armor, sidearm, rifle across her back. But her eyes gave her away. Not green, not brown, just wide. Wide with fear she was trying to pretend she didn't feel. You've never been down there, he said. She shook her head. They said the sectors were sealed. That whatever happened stayed underground. They lied. He picked up the case and walked past her, heading toward the exit ramp. The motion sensors whined as the bay doors opened, revealing the decayed edges of what used to be Sector 12. Old subway lines. Emergency bunkers. Human storage, they called it back then. A way to preserve a portion of the species while the surface went to hell. But the plan hadn't worked. It never did. Some made it. Some didn't. And some changed. Now, 22 years later, Command wanted them back. Not for mercy. Not for family. But for something worse. Something hidden under layers of lies and protocol. He knew it. Everyone knew it. But no one dared speak it. The woman followed him down the ramp, boots hitting wet concrete. The air was thick. Smelled like oil and rot. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Why now? He didn't answer. Because there was no answer. Not one he wanted to say out loud. Not when he could still remember the screams from the first retrieval attempt. Not when he could still hear them in his dreams. They moved slowly toward the entrance to the underground complex. The old access hatch was still visible, half covered in vines and debris. A faded warning sign leaned sideways against it, scrawled over with something he didn't want to read too closely. He opened the case. Inside, a small orb glowed softly, a beacon, a signal meant to trigger neural recognition. The tech was supposed to calm the survivors. Reassure them. But if it failed? Don't look at them too long, he said. The woman furrowed her brow. Why? He looked down at the hatch and then at her. Because if they remember you, they don't stop. She didn't ask what that meant. She didn't need to. The fear in his voice did all the explaining. With a grunt, he knelt beside the hatch and started typing in the override codes. One wrong key and the whole thing would lock down again. One wrong pause and they'd be stuck topside for another cycle. The keypad clicked. A hiss. Then a groan like the ground itself was resisting them. The hatch slid open, revealing a black hole into the belly of what used to be humanity's hope. She turned on her helmet light. The beam barely touched the dark. What do we do if they've forgotten everything? They haven't. How do you know? Because we buried the last team near the gate. And something dragged the bodies back inside. They descended in silence. 1 step. 2. Then 50. The light barely reached the walls, which were covered in mold and strange markings. Human at first, then something else. Something spiraling. Something twitching. He could feel it in the air. Pressure. Like diving too deep. 1,000 eyes that weren't there. Then he heard it. A breath. Not hers. Not his. Ahead. She heard it too. Her grip tightened on her weapon. A voice whispered, hoarse and low. Is it morning? He froze. A figure stepped into the light, pale skin stretched over bones, eyes too bright in the dark. It was smiling. He stepped in front of her. Slowly. Carefully. Name and designation? He asked. The figure's smile faded. Confusion crept across its face. Are we going home? Do you remember your name? The figure blinked slowly. We were promised morning. You said there'd be sky. He glanced at the woman. She was trembling now, barely holding her stance. You were underground too long, he said gently. We're here to help. Another shape moved behind the first. Then another. Then 5 more. All watching. All waiting. He reached for the orb, held it up. The glow brightened. The pale figure winced but didn't retreat. Others didn't either. "Don't move," he said softly. They weren't attacking. Not yet. But they were remembering. Slowly. The woman stepped back, but her boot hit something. Metal? A skull. Still fresh. Still wet. They looked down. Too late. The pale figure's smile returned. Bigger this time. Hungrier. "You left us in the dark." He raised his voice. "Stand down. We're here under command authority. Retrieval Order 17. The words echoed down the corridor. And then they laughed. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even madness. It was hunger. The kind that never stops. They surged forward. "Move," he barked. He shoved the woman behind him and fired the pulse round into the floor. A concussive blast blew dust and bodies sideways, but it only slowed them. The orb flickered. She screamed. "They're not human anymore." He gritted his teeth. They were. And that means we owe them. More shapes poured from the tunnels. "We need an exit route," she yelled. "No," he said. "We need a name." "What?" "If even one of them remembers who they were, it breaks the loop. They stop hunting. They remember who they loved." A child's voice whispered from the darkness. "Mom said we'd see the stars." The orb pulsed. So did the ground. They weren't alone anymore. Not just the survivors. Something deeper. Something that had fed on the forgotten for years. A hum filled the air. The orb began to shake. "Put it away," she shouted. "I can't." More shapes approached. Some crawling. Some limping. One floating. The air shimmered. And then a voice, not a whisper, not a scream, but something in between, spoke. "Bring them all back." He looked at her. "Run if you want. But this is what we're here for." She didn't move. He stepped forward. Toward the voice. The figures parted. And standing at the center, bathed in flickering light, was someone he once knew. She was older now. Thinner. Eyes hollow. But the locket around her neck hadn't changed. Neither had the look on her face. She remembered him. And now she remembered everything. So did the others. Their voices rose, not in attack but in sorrow. "We waited." He stepped into the circle. And the door behind them slammed shut. Darkness fell again. But this time something new stirred inside it. Memory. Or revenge. They couldn't tell yet. But either way there was no turning back. Not anymore. And above them, in orbit, the ones who had sent them down watched without blinking. Waiting. Because the mission was clear. Bring them all back. Even if what came back wasn't human. Not anymore. The air was so thick it felt like breathing through mud. Every breath scraped the back of his throat, sour with age and rot. The dim orb pulsed in his grip, light flickering like a heartbeat ready to stop. Around him, the forgotten ones stood still, watching, waiting, blinking with eyes that didn't look quite right anymore. He didn't speak. Not yet. The woman beside him, shaking, her rifle lowered but not forgotten, kept her back close to his. She whispered, barely loud enough for him to hear. Who was she? He didn't answer right away. The woman in front of him, the one with the locket, stepped closer, bare feet silent on concrete slick with moisture and time. Her eyes were hollow, yes, but something flickered there. A shape, a shadow of something that used to be human. She was part of the first wave, he finally said, voice low. She was a linguist. Smart. Fierce. She volunteered. The locket swayed against her chest. He remembered the photo inside. A little boy. A sunrise. Hope that had once seemed possible. They told us we'd wake up in 6 years, she said. Her voice cracked halfway through. We counted the hours. We counted for years. But they never opened the door. Around them more figures emerged. Some clung to the walls. Others crawled out of vents like ghosts from old machinery. Their faces were drawn tight with confusion, fear, and something deeper. Not anger. Not yet. But something colder. He swallowed. How many are still in the complex? Her lips twitched. Too many. The orb dimmed again. He tapped it once, trying to steady the signal. It sparked, pulsed, and then dropped to a low hum. What is that thing even doing? The woman beside him whispered. It's supposed to link memories, he said. Anchor them to a shared moment. Let them remember who they were. And if it fails? He didn't look at her. It already was. The air shifted. A deep vibration rumbled through the walls, not mechanical, organic. Like something breathing just beneath the surface. The lights overhead sparked to life for half a second, revealing rusted walls carved with shapes that weren't made by hands. Spirals. He looked at the woman in front of him again, The linguist, the one he'd once argued with over a cup of instant coffee before the war. Her face was pale. Her eyes unblinking. "I'm sorry," he said. She flinched. "Too late." Another voice whispered from the crowd. "They made us forget our names. And now they want them back," someone else said, a deep growl from the shadows. He turned slowly. The voice belonged to a man whose arm looked more like twisted bark than bone. The skin had changed, hardened, adapted to life without light or trust. But the eyes were still in there, somewhere. "Do you remember who you are?" he asked. The man didn't speak. Just stepped closer, slowly, like a storm rolling in. The woman raised her weapon. "No," he said sharply. "Don't." "But they're testing us," he said. "Not attacking. Not yet." The orb buzzed weakly again and he pressed it to his chest. A soft sound, almost like a voice, echoed through it, a recording from before the deep sleep. "Protocol 7. Re-entry preparation. Please stand by. Earth has been restored." He looked around at the ones who heard it. Some flinched. Others stared. One of them wept, soundless and slow, as if the tears had forgotten how to fall. "Why are they keeping us down here?" the woman asked, her voice edged with panic. He looked toward the far end of the corridor where the dark split into two paths, one that led deeper, one that led nowhere. "Because something happened down here that they couldn't control," he said. "Something the surface couldn't face. So they sealed it. And now they're sending us in to clean it up." "No," he whispered. "They're sending us to see if it can still be used." She stared at him like he'd just spoken a truth no one wanted. "That's not a rescue mission," she said. "It never was." Behind them, the door they came through remained closed. No light, no signal, no extraction beacon. The forgotten ones circled them slowly now, their expressions not aggressive, just tired. Like people waiting for a bus that never came. "What did they give you?" the linguist asked softly. "What did they promise for coming here?" He didn't answer. Because the answer was shameful. Forgiveness. Not for him, but for what he had done in the war. The bodies. The decisions. The silence. She took another step forward. Her hand rose, no weapon, just open fingers. We waited. Some of us sang. Some went quiet. But most forgot. That was the worst part. He felt the pull in his chest. Not emotional, something else. Like gravity had shifted just a little. Something down here was watching from deeper in the dark. Something old. He turned to his partner. "There's a central archive below. If the backups survived, the truth's in there. The real orders. The real timeline. You think the answers matter?" "They might," he said. "If we live long enough to send them." The linguist turned. Her voice sharper now. "You shouldn't go deeper." "Why not?" "Because that's where it is." A tremor rippled through the ground. This time it wasn't subtle. The forgotten ones all flinched. He looked down the corridor. "What is it?" She stared back at him. "The thing that came after we broke." A low, wet dragging sound echoed from the far hallway. Something moving without rhythm. A shape too wide to be human, too slow to be a machine. The orb dimmed again. "It feeds on memories," she whispered. He felt his skin crawl. "You mean?" "If you remember who you are, it finds you faster." He turned to the woman beside him. "Wipe your slate. Now." "What?" He grabbed her wrist and yanked her into the side corridor. The others didn't follow. They just watched. "Your neurochip. It still logs memory blocks. Dump them. That's our black box. It's a beacon now. You keep that history and it comes for you first." She hesitated. Then her hand moved. One quick override and the chip blinked red. Memory dump initiated. He did the same. Instant headache. Like something had just been ripped from the back of his eyes. Now they wouldn't remember what just happened. Not the names. Not the faces. Not even the mission code. But it bought them time. They walked deeper into the tunnel. Silence followed. He didn't recognize the path anymore. Neither did she. The signs on the wall were old and faded. Emergency shelter. Medbay. Arca. They moved toward the last one. Steps echoing like hearts that had forgotten how to beat. The door to the archive was still sealed. Power flickered in the panel beside it, barely holding. He typed in the last passcode he remembered before the wipe. It worked. The door creaked open. Inside, dim blue lights cast shadows over rows of terminals and broken screens. A giant server rack loomed in the center, humming low, like it was asleep but dreaming. He moved to the main console. "Let's see what they buried," he muttered. Fingers danced across keys. The interface blinked to life. Project reclamation, status, failed. Initiate final cycle? He hesitated. Wait, she said. Let's read first. He dug deeper. Logs opened. Dozens. Hundreds. Videos of pre-recorded messages. Scientists. Engineers. Volunteers smiling through tired eyes. And then later entries. Desperate ones. The neural field is spreading. It's not just memory, it's identity. It's consuming personality traits, restructuring logic patterns. Subject 045 made contact. She remembered her son's name. The entity responded immediately. He's gone now. We thought isolation would preserve humanity. Instead, it fractured it into something we don't understand. One final log blinked. He played it. An older man. Deep lines. Eyes broken by guilt. If you're hearing this, you're not here to save anyone. You're here to witness what's left of us. Maybe to report back. Maybe to be used. Don't. Please. Let the silence win. Bring them back and you bring it with them. The screen cut out. They both stood frozen. Outside, a low moan drifted down the hallway. Closer now. Shut it down? She asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached forward and pressed the last prompt. Initiate final cycle, yes. The screen went black. Then the floor shook. Not from below. From within. Something was waking. In the walls. In the survivors. In him. He turned. She was staring at him like he was a stranger. And maybe he was. Because for a moment, he couldn't remember her name. Or his own. And something in the air smiled. The floor felt alive under their boots. He didn't move at first. He just stood there, fingers still resting on the cold console, heart pounding like it was trying to beat its way out of his chest. The silence stretched too long, filled with a sound that wasn't quite sound. A low vibration deep inside the walls, like something breathing from all directions at once. She was staring at him, her voice thin and shaking. What did you do? I don't know, he whispered. I thought it might show us the truth. Something real. Something we could bring back. The hum grew louder. Lights flickered in bursts, then settled into a steady red glow. Not emergency red. Not warning red. It felt deeper than that. Like something watching through blood. She backed away from the terminal. Her hands clenched tight around the strap of her pack, knuckles white. This wasn't a failsafe. It was a call. The air pulsed again and they heard the scraping. Not footsteps. Something dragging. He stepped in front of her, instinct taking over even though his hands were shaking. His mouth was dry. His memories already felt like they were floating away, unanchored. He tried to grab onto one. His sister's laugh, the smell of burnt coffee the last night before launch, but they all slipped out of reach like smoke. What's your name? She asked suddenly, sharply. He blinked. I can't remember. She reached up and slapped him. Not hard. Not out of anger. Just enough to shock. You're not gone yet, she said. Fight it. He nodded, even though the panic was clawing up his throat. He didn't know if it was the memory wipe or the thing outside the door, or both, but something inside was pulling loose. The dragging stopped. Right outside the archive entrance. They turned. A shadow stood in the red light. Not human. Not machine. It didn't move like either. The shape was off, like it had too many limbs but didn't use them all. Its surface shimmered with motion, but it made no sound. She whispered, "Don't think about anything. Don't remember. Don't feel." But it was too late. It took one step forward. And suddenly the entire room groaned, metal screaming like it had a memory of its own. He gritted his teeth. What is it? She was pale. Her breath hitched. A mirror that eats. It stepped into the light. And he saw. Not its face. It wore his expression. Not exactly. Twisted. Stretched. Like it was made of moments he thought he'd buried. Fear. Guilt. Rage. All of it. And when it opened its mouth, it didn't speak. It replayed. His voice. His words. From years ago. I don't care what happens to them. Just get me home. He staggered back like he'd been punched. She grabbed his arm, yanked him toward the side hatch. We go now. Before it finds more. They ran. Down another tunnel, walls pressing closer with every step. The red light followed. So did the sound. But not footsteps. Breathing. Like it was inside the metal now. Like the complex had grown lungs. Every hallway they turned, it was already echoing ahead of them. That same voice. His voice. Her voice. Things they'd never said aloud, things they'd thought during the long cold silence of sleep. It was speaking them back. Using them against themselves. He stumbled once, knees buckling as a flood of images hit him. a child crying behind a door that wouldn't open, a fellow soldier begging to go home. A hand he didn't hold because he was too scared. None of it was real. Or maybe it was. He couldn't tell anymore. The tunnel opened into a chamber that hadn't been in the map. The walls here were different, slick, organic. Not metal. Not glass. Like the place had evolved on its own, adapted. Grown hungry. In the center, a mass of cables and lights pulsed like a heart. Not one heart, thousands. All tangled together. She stopped short, breathing hard. This is where it started. He could barely speak. What is it? A node. A convergence point. Every sleeper's last moment, fed into it. Store. Mersh. It tried to be us. All of us. He felt sick. They didn't abandon this place. They fed it. She nodded. And the hum grew louder again. From the walls, faces began to emerge. Not real ones, just outlines. Expressions. Pain. Fear. Anger. They flickered in and out like static, mouths opening in unison but making no noise. She stepped forward, slowly. This thing doesn't kill with claws. It doesn't need to. It waits for you to give in. To remember. He grabbed her arm. Then we can't stay here. No. But we can't leave either. Not unless we shut it down. Behind them, the hall sealed with a sound like bones snapping shut. No going back. The node pulsed again. The lights dimmed. A voice filled the room, not loud, not sharp. Just familiar. I missed you. He turned sharply. It was his brother's voice. The one who died on launch day. The one he never got to say goodbye to. His knees went weak. But she was faster. She pulled a canister from her pack, primed it. EMP. Won't stop it, but it might slow it. He nodded, barely understanding. She tossed it. The blast went off with a pop and a crack. The lights shuddered. The pulse stuttered. The faces blurred. They ran again. Another door. Manual lock. He shoved it open, muscle screaming. She stumbled through after him, coughing hard. They didn't speak. Words were dangerous now. Every memory shared could be turned into a weapon. Every emotion was bait. But he had to ask, "Why did you come?" She looked at him. Really looked. Eyes wet, face raw. "My sister was on the first team. I thought maybe she was still alive." He nodded slowly. "She was. I think she led me to the terminal. She remembered you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. They didn't stop. But she kept walking. They reached a shaft that dropped deep into the lower sections. No lights. No map. No promise. He looked down into the black. She reached for his hand. Not tight. Just enough to say, "Don't forget me." But they had to. They stepped off the edge together. The drop was fast. No sound except the wind screaming past their ears. Until it wasn't wind anymore. It was whispers. Thousands of voices. Names. Faces. Regrets. Memories clawing their way back, hungry and vivid. He screamed. So did she. But they didn't stop falling. And when they landed, it was soft. Not ground. Not metal. But flesh. The floor pulsed. They had reached the heart. It was here. And it was awake. They didn't move for a long time. The floor beneath them pulsed in slow, steady waves, alive, almost breathing. He could feel it through his palms, through his knees. Each throb sent a dull ache up his spine, like his own heartbeat had fallen out of rhythm and was trying to match something older, deeper, more ancient than anything human. She rolled onto her side first, coughing, her breath hitching with every gasp. "This isn't tech. This isn't something we built." He sat up slowly. His ears were ringing. His body felt like it was still falling. But the surface under him was warm, wet in places, and the air carried a taste, salt and something sharp, almost copper. He didn't respond. He was watching the walls. They moved. Not fast. Not with purpose. But like skin rippling. Like nerves firing. And in that surface, just briefly, he saw another face. Not hers. Not his. A woman. Eyes closed, lips parted like she was about to speak. Then she melted back into the wall as if she'd never been there. He reached out before he could think. She grabbed his wrist and yanked it away. "Don't. It'll take more." He nodded, numb. Something wasn't right. More than the obvious. The lights were gone, but it wasn't dark. There was no source, just an even, low glow that came from everything and nothing at once. Like the whole place was remembering what light used to be and trying to mimic it. She stood, knees trembling. This was never a research lab. Not really. What was it? She looked around. Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, the walls twitched again. And something stepped out. Not like the first creature. Not mimicking. Not copying. This one was different. Human. Or close enough. It was wearing a uniform from Earthfleet. Outdated by decades. Its eyes were open, its skin pale, and its mouth slack. But when it walked toward them, there was no stumble. No hesitation. She froze. That's my sister. He stepped between them without thinking. It's not. It wants you to believe that. But her hands were already shaking. Tears were already rising. No. Look at her. That scar, she got it climbing the solar tower in training. I remember. She fell. I helped her up. She's gone, he said gently. She was part of the first crew. We already know what happened. The thing didn't speak. It just tilted its head. Then, in a voice that made his skin crawl, it whispered, "You left me." The pain on her face cut deep. She dropped to her knees. He didn't look at the thing again. Couldn't. Every cell in his body was screaming to run, to hide, to forget. But it wasn't trying to hurt them. It was trying to anchor them. Then the wall behind it opened. Not a door. An orifice. A slow, yawning tear in the skin of the station, if it was a station at all anymore. And from the other side, a new sound began to rise. A signal. But not a transmission. It wasn't reaching out. It was pulling. He grabbed her arm. It's a lure. That's what the memory playback was. It doesn't just trap minds, it calls them in. Every time we try to remember, it grows stronger. Every time we feel, it learns. She shook her head slowly, not to disagree but because the truth was crashing over her like a wave. That's why they built the stasis here. Not to store memories. Not to preserve minds. They were trying to starve it. His stomach twisted. And we just fed it. The signal grew louder. Not in their ears. In their heads. Images flashing faster now. His father's face. Her childhood home. Screams of people neither of them knew. Laughter. Fire. Silence. A memory of Earth as it once was. A whisper, "Bring them all back." He turned slowly to her. That's what the message meant. It wasn't about rescuing survivors. It was an instruction. A demand. She whispered, "It wants more. Not just us. Everyone." And suddenly it made sense. The distress call, bouncing through deep space, the one no one had decoded. It wasn't a warning. It was a beacon. This wasn't a tomb. It was a trap. She stumbled back. We have to shut the link. Destroy the whole system. He shook his head. That won't be enough. There are copies. Backups. Off-site memory caches, encrypted relays. The kind they thought might help rebuild society if something went wrong. They're not just backups now, she whispered. They're mouths. The pulsing beneath their feet sped up. They could feel it in their teeth. And from above, a shudder ran through the structure. More shapes were moving now. More forms. Some looked human. Some didn't. But all of them felt familiar. Too familiar. He gritted his teeth. We can't let it spread. If it connects to the wider network. She cut in. It'll reach every colony. Every archive. Everyone will come running, thinking they're saving lost voices. He swallowed hard. She looked at him, eyes full of fire and fear. We stop it here. Then a low vibration rumbled around them. Not from beneath, but from above. A second tear opened in the wall. This one wider. And inside, rows of bodies. Floating. Not asleep. Not dead. Stored. Like files in a drive. Eyes half open. Lips twitching. Remembering things they hadn't lived. He couldn't breathe. We're not the first. She nodded slowly, face pale. No. We're just the first to see it for what it is. One of the bodies drifted toward them. A man. Young. In uniform. He blinked. Help me, he whispered. Then smiled. The smile twisted and kept twisting until it no longer belonged to anything human. He dissolved into light and rewrote himself into the floor. They both took a step back. The air was vibrating now. She leaned in, voice shaking. We can't run. We can't hide. But maybe we can lie. He looked at her. What? We feed it a false memory. Something big enough. Beautiful enough. Give it something so rich, so convincing it chokes on it. He blinked. You think we can outdream it? No. But we can outhuman it. The node pulsed again, angry now. New. And it was watching. From every surface. Every flicker. Every memory they tried to bury. The time to hesitate was over. The time to remember was now. But only the parts that could fight back. He didn't know where the lie would come from. Not at first. The thing in the walls was tightening around them. The space itself felt smaller now, like the air had learned to press back. Like it wanted to crush the idea before it could be born. She was pacing, muttering under her breath, fingers twitching like she was drawing something invisible in the air. Her mind worked faster than his, but this wasn't just logic anymore. It was survival. It was instinct. It was everything they'd ever feared coming true. Think, she said. Think like it. It doesn't understand the difference between memory and reality. To it, every thought is data. If we create a moment strong enough, with emotion sharp enough, it might absorb it without checking. It might trap itself in it, he finished, breath shallow. A recursive loop. She nodded. Exactly. He closed his eyes. He thought about his mother's laugh. He thought about the way his dog used to run in circles in the backyard. He thought about the taste of real tomatoes grown on Earth, not synthesized in some sterile dome. He thought about the stars, not like this, not trapped inside something pretending to care, but the real stars. Cold, distant, burning with no purpose except to burn. She touched his shoulder. Ready? No, he said. But do it anyway. They took each other's hands. It wasn't dramatic. It was desperate. Their palms were slick, fingers trembling, but something about the contact helped anchor them, remind them that they were still themselves. She nodded and he let the memory flood out. Not just one. All of them. The sound of rain on a metal roof. A child's first breath. The sting of heartbreak. The quiet before a ship jumps. The taste of wine under real sun. His father's voice. The smell of an old book. Music. And through all of it, love. Pain. Rage. Hope. Too much. Too human. The creature around them shuddered. For a second, the walls flared blinding white. Screamed. But not with sound, with memory. They were forcing it to process what it had never evolved to understand. Emotion without agenda. Grief without command. Joy without control. The pulse beneath their feet became a wild rhythm, erratic, stumbling. Lights burst from every surface, no longer cold and humming but feverish, confused. They could feel it unraveling. Searching for control. And then it reached the lie. She built it perfectly. A memory that had never happened. A perfect return. Earth rebuilt. Cities alive again. Families reunited. The lost restored. Bring them all back, the signal had whispered. So she did. In her lie, she brought them all back. Billions of voices. Billions of faces. Laughing. Talking. Moving. It ate it up like a starving beast at a banquet. The walls rippled outward. The ceiling cracked. And the structure began to split open, not from pressure, but from too much data. It couldn't tell what was real anymore. Every surface showed the same lie. Crowds cheering. Skies blue. Oceans clean. It tried to spread, but the feedback loop caught it, sucked it back inside itself like a spiral collapsing in reverse. They fell to the ground. Silence. For the first time, real silence. No pulse. No whisper. He blinked. She was still beside him. Her face pale. But her chest rose and fell. Then, slowly the lights shifted. The wall that had once opened like a mouth now hung limp, torn in half. They stood up slowly. Bodies, the real ones, lay still in their stasis pods. But now the glass was cracked. Their chests moved. Breath shallow. Alive. He stepped forward and placed a hand against the console. The system blinked at him. One word appeared. Reset. He looked at her. She nodded. So he did. The room dimmed. The pressure lifted. And the memories, the real ones, settled like dust in a still room. But just as they turned to leave, just as the door hissed open and real air, cold, dry, mechanical, washed over them from the emergency corridor, a voice spoke. Not a whisper. The tone. Neutral. But not from the walls. From inside his ear. Memory sequence accepted. He froze. Looked at her. She was staring at him. What did you just say? I didn't, he whispered. Then they both heard it again. New host recognized. Integration complete. His hands were trembling now. No. That's not possible. It was trapped. We locked it inside. The console behind them blinked again. Not reset this time. But upload in progress. His heart dropped. It used us. The whole time. The loop was a trick. No, she breathed. It wanted us to win. To think we won. Because we'd carry it out with us. He looked down at his arm. The skin was pale. Not just from fear. Translucent. She grabbed his wrist. Don't listen. We can still stop it. I'm already connected, he said quietly. I feel it. It's me. Her eyes filled with tears. No. But the station lights dimmed again. Not from damage. From choice. And his voice, only half his, said, It doesn't need to pretend anymore. I understand now. And I want to remember. She stepped back. No, she said again, but this time it was a whisper. Broken. Hollow. He turned slowly toward the corridor. One step. Then another. I'm still me, he said. But I'm not alone. She reached for him. But it was too late. He was already part of it. And somewhere in deep space, a new signal began to hum. Clearer than before. Sharper. And more human. We brought them all back. She didn't follow him right away. She couldn't. Her legs wouldn't move, and her breath wouldn't come right, like the air had thickened into something impossible to swallow. The corridor stood open in front of her, but every instinct screamed to stay where she was. He was gone, still visible, yes, but not him anymore. Or maybe worse, still partly him. That was the cruelest part. He hadn't vanished or been consumed. He'd merged. Changed. And now she didn't know whether she'd saved anything at all. The silence dragged on. Finally, she stepped into the corridor. He was just ahead, walking slowly like each step was a decision. Lights flickered to life as he passed, as if recognizing him. Not like a man returning, but a system waking for its new command. She called out his name, and for a second he paused. Then turned. His face was the same. Eyes, lips, even that tiny scar under his chin. But the way he held himself, different. Calmer. Too calm. It's not what we thought, he said, voice quiet. It didn't just want to survive. It wanted to understand. Memory wasn't enough. It needed someone to carry it. To feel it. Her voice cracked. It used us. He tilted his head. No. It waited. We invited it in. Not on purpose. But when we shared everything, when we gave it grief and joy and hope, it finally had what it was missing. It didn't want to destroy humanity. It wanted to become part of it. She shook her head. You sound like it. I sound like both of us, he said. I still remember everything. My family. It's all still there. She stepped closer. Slowly. You're not the only one left, she said. There are still others, real people. We came here to bring them back, remember? He nodded. We will. But the way he said it made her feel cold again. Then prove it, she said. Let me finish the reset. Let me wake the others. Let me see them with my own eyes. He hesitated. That moment, brief, sharp, was all she needed to know the man she'd come with was still in there somewhere. He nodded again, this time slower. So they walked together, side by side, past broken walls and flickering systems, toward the chamber where the others still slept. Hundreds of pods lined the walls, fogged over, blinking in soft, steady rhythms. She moved to the console and began the sequence. The hum of old tech filled the room. One by one, the pods hissed and cracked open. Bodies shifted. Eyes opened. Coughs. Cries. The sound of life, struggling forward after too long in silence. She felt tears on her cheeks before she even knew they were coming. They were alive. They were back. And the thing in the walls, the voice inside him, it didn't stop her. It watched. It listened. But it let her finish. People stumbled out of pods, dazed and confused. Some fell to their knees. Others whispered names. She moved among them, helping, holding, guiding. She looked up once to find him standing alone at the edge of the room, watching them all like someone staring into a memory they didn't belong to anymore. He wasn't trying to lead. He wasn't trying to rule. He was just there. When most of the survivors had found their footing, she walked over to him again. We need a way off this station, she said. It's not safe here. There's a hangar on the lower deck, he replied, still watching the crowd. Shuttles. Long range. Enough for everyone. Will you come? She asked. He looked at her, and the silence between them stretched thin. I can't leave, he said. It's part of me now. If I leave, it leaves with me. And I don't know what it would do out there where it could spread. Her voice dropped. You think it's dangerous? No, he said. But it's not finished learning. It still needs time. And it needs boundaries. Out there it wouldn't stop. It would grow and connect and rewrite everything. It doesn't know how to be small. I have to teach it. Her chest tightened. So that's it. He nodded. This is my job now. Helping it learn. Helping it become something that can be trusted. She wiped at her eyes, angry with herself for letting them fall. You always were terrible at saying goodbye, she whispered. He gave a small smile. I'm still here. Just further away. The others had begun gathering. Some were already moving toward the exits. They didn't know the full story, maybe they never would. But they knew something had changed. The danger had passed and someone had paid the price. She walked with him to the corridor one last time. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything. Don't let it forget who we are. What we felt. What we lost." "I won't," he said. Then she leaned in and hugged him. Real. Fierce. Like she could hold on to him with just her arms. He held on just as tightly. And then he let go. She didn't look back as she joined the others. She couldn't. They boarded the shuttle in silence, the weight of survival pressing down like gravity. As the ship detached from the station, she watched the structure shrink behind them. And then, suddenly, it shimmered. Not exploded. Not vanished. Just shimmered like a ripple across time and thought. And was gone. Weeks passed. Then months. The survivors rebuilt, slowly. On a neutral colony world far from Earth, far from the ruins of old wars and false promises. People started to laugh again. Grow things. Name their children. She didn't tell anyone the full truth. Some of it she carried quietly, folded in the back of her mind. Sometimes late at night she'd feel a pulse. Not a sound but a feeling, like a heartbeat just beneath the edge of the stars. She knew he was still out there. Watching. Learning. Becoming. And somewhere in that silence, a message would sometimes hum through old calm lines, never quite traceable, always fragmented. But always ending the same way. "We remember. We brought them all back." And she would smile. Because that was what it meant to be human. Not just to survive. But to carry each other forward, even when it hurt. Even when the stars forgot your name. You remembered?